Hi, this is the second part of the tutorial for setting up a library budget using Google Sheets. In the previous part of this tutorial, we set up a table for recording expenditures to different vendors, and we have an example of what a single order from a vendor might look like here. During this portion of the tutorial, we're going to copy this table to each sheet that we created at the beginning for different funding sources. So far, we have just created a table for recording expenditures for general funds, but you'd like to see this table ready to go on each of the sheets that we created. To begin with, though, let's talk about spending the rest of this actual remaining balance amount. I mentioned during the previous portion of this tutorial that it's very important to recognize that just because you place an order to a vendor for a certain amount, it does not mean the actual amount will be the same, because books go out of print or they're no longer available. One thing librarians do to try to make sure that this remaining balance is as small as possible is they actually place orders for above their budget amount. For example, in placing this order to Permabound, if I wanted to completely encumber this $6,000 amount, what I could have done is initially made my list of books that I absolutely wanted for my library and made sure those books totaled at least $6,000. And then I would have added some extra books to my order. Most vendors will allow you, including Permabound, will allow you to set books in your cart to low priority. You can have extra books in your order that you would be interested in including in your library, but you can set them to lower priority. And when you place your order, you can specify to the vendor that you do not want your order to exceed $6,000. They'll see that your cart contains titles for above that amount, but what they'll do on their side is make sure that your total goes no higher than $6,000 exactly, and they'll try to get as close to that amount as possible. And this is how it works. First, they'll remove any titles that are out of print or no longer available from your order. And then they'll look at those titles that you set to low priority, and they'll start removing those first until you get to an order that's as close as possible to your do not exceed amount. In this case, if you set it for $6,000. So just keep that in mind. That can help you make sure your ending actual balance is as small as possible. And this is also a good incentive for placing your orders as soon as possible during that fall semester so that you have plenty of time to spend any remaining funds if you do have an actual remaining balance. So now what we're going to do is since this is just a template, I'm going to delete this example here. I'm going just cell by cell, and I'm going to delete this example, because I want this to be a template that we can copy each year. And I'm going to delete our budget amount. And now I'm going to start over here at A1 and hold down my left click button. And then I'm going to click and drag until all the cells we have worked in are selected. And I'm going to hold down my Control C and click C for copy. So I'm doing a Control C command to copy this table, and you'll notice that I have a little hash, a little broken blue line there to designate that I've copied this table. And now I'm going to go to my next sheet, activity, my next page of this sheet. And I'm just going to kind of select about the same amount of space here. And I'm going to hold down my Control key and hit V as in Valentine to paste. And there it pasted the same table with the same formulas. on my activity sheet, and I'm going to go through the same steps for bond. Hold down the Control key, hit V as in Valentine to paste. Let's go over here to Title I. Hold down the Control key, hit V as in Valentine, and Indian Ed. It's okay if you go a little bit over just to make sure. It'll just paste that table that you created. So now on each of these sheets created for each possible funding source our library could have, we have a budget sheet ready to go that we can use to record our expenditures and then report this amount to our principals. So if you have any questions on creating budget sheets or tracking expenditures for your library, don't hesitate to ask.